Okay, good morning. April 8th, 2023. It's a Saturday morning, right before Easter Sunday. And so this morning I was reading from Philippians 2, 1 through 11. And this is such an amazing passage of Scripture because I think it accomplishes a couple things. I think Paul's goal is, one, to call the believers that he's writing to in Philippi to deep Christian unity. He says, if there's any comfort from his love, speaking of Christ, if any common sharing in the Spirit, and a few other things, he says, then make my joy complete by being like-minded, being one in spirit, intent on one purpose. And that's a challenge. There was a challenge in the church then. It's a challenge in the world today to have a oneness and a unity with other believers. And in some cases, that's really easy. We love our Christian brothers and sisters. We get along with them. We connect with them. We serve with them. But then there's going to be situations where we don't feel that unity for a variety of reasons. It could be personality conflict. It could be a sin issue. There's people we don't really just connect with or get along with. And it happens even among believers. And so Paul is still calling for us to have this united spirit. And I think what he's getting at is kind of that second point is we need to humble ourselves and we need to look out for the interest of others. In fact, humble ourselves to the point where we consider others more important than ourselves. And it's easy to read about and have a good thought towards, like, oh, that's something I got to do, but it's really hard in practice. I think if we're really honest with ourselves, it's hard to consider somebody else's life as more important than our own. Because it's easy, obviously, to look at other people and we see their faults and we see their failures. And then we look at our own and we have a tendency to gloss over those. To not think that they're quite as bad as the sin of other people. I do that myself. But I think we need to stop and we need to consider other people and look at their life and remember that they're made in the image of God just like me. And in doing so, that's going to enable us, I think, to say, you know what, that person's life is of same value as my own. They're made in the image of God just like me. And God has given them spiritual gifts just like me. They have sin issues just like me. And we need to pause and humble ourselves. And that's a challenge, but it's something that we're all called to do, every single believer, to humble ourselves. And the third part is he kind of goes on to this humility track and he says, using the example of Jesus, he says, Jesus humbled himself and he was God himself. He didn't take advantage of his God status on earth and say, kind of like, the rules don't apply to me. I'm God and I can do what I want. We see that in the church. We see that in the world today where people in positions of power, they take advantage of that and they don't show humility. That's commonplace. That's been going on since the dawn of time. People that are guilty of hypocrisy. But we see Jesus, who was the ultimate authority over everything. John 1 talks about the fact that everything that's in existence is there because Jesus made it. So he was working with God to create all things. And so if he is here as somebody who all authority is underneath him, and he is in a position where every knee will bow and every tongue will confess that he is Lord, yet he went and humbled himself and became obedient. So in closing, this is the question I'm asking myself, and I encourage you to ask yourself too. What is God asking you, or really commanding you, to be obedient to him in? I think if you pause, you'll realize it's not that far away from where you are. You'll be able to come up with that pretty quickly. Because it's something probably that God has been putting on your heart and placing on your heart over and over again. So that's the challenge to me and to you is, will we be obedient to the specific thing that God is calling us to do? In my case, I need to control my tongue. I need to be guarded in the words that come out of my mouth. Because often those words can come out and they lead to anger and frustration and more words. So I'm going to pause and try to control my tongue. So ask yourself that question. Ask God to give you the strength to be obedient, just like Christ did. Have a great day and have a great Easter.